Hello, wrestling fans. This is Sal Rough Cuts reporting in from Orlando, Florida. With this edition of Rough Cuts, the fans have spoken. This show is dedicated to you, the fans, asking your questions and comments and things you wanted me to answer. So I'm dedicating the next 15 to 17 minutes to your questions that I've got on Twitter, on my salinbandit42 at gmail.com. I'm going to answer as many as I can, as honestly, as collectively as I can, and also a quick comment about the show All Out that just took place. There were several surprises. I'm going to dedicate an AEW versus WWE show. I'm going to talk about what I'm going to do in my next edition, so you're going to want to stay tuned to that at the end. But this show is dedicated to you, the fans, as many questions as I can answer. I've been overwhelmed. If I don't get to yours, just reach out and I'll answer it on a future show. Please be advised that these are my opinions only. They're not affiliated with any wrestling promotion or nor Bill Apter at all. So let's get right to it, as many as I can. First of all, Dave Phelan, Phalen, reached out to me. I want to read this to you. It's a very, very interesting story here for all of you. He wanted to drop me a note and thank me for getting these good and positive stories out there about some of the wrestling greats, and he wanted to share one of his personal ones with me. He used to work the sound events, and I did so at Starrcade in 1986, where the Midnight Express lost to the Road Warriors in a scaffold match. My young daughter, who was about 7, was a Midnight Express fan, so I was able to bring her, and she was allowed to watch from the back by the entrances with the supervision from the staff while I worked. When the Midnight Express were kicked off the scaffold and the crowd went wild, my daughter got scared and started crying, thinking they were really hurt. Donna, Bobby Eaton's wife, was backstage watching and came over to my daughter and calmed her down and was so gracious. Later, she introduced her to Bobby, and my daughter's night was made. Thank you so much for that, for Dave, and that just goes to show you still what an amazing human being Bobby Eaton was and Donna Eaton was, and they are sorely missed today. Thank you so much for Dave for being able to work Starrcade, to bring your daughter, and that she was a huge Midnight Express fan, and it just goes to show you just how wonderful Bobby and Donna were. They are sorely missed. But Donna, had mentioned to me that, Bobby, and it's well known, Bobby hated those matches at all, and he didn't get seriously hurt, but he did get hurt. But you did it for the fans. It's what you signed off for. So, Dave, thank you. I'm sure your daughter is still to this day a big Midnight Express fan, and I'm sure she's just as heartbroken of the loss of recently of Bobby and Donna, but she'll have that memory in her heart to take forever. And thank you so much for sharing that story with us. Rich from PR Recruiting had a couple of questions. If you could book one angle right now leading up to the next WrestleMania, who would be involved and how would it play out between now and the big show that is WrestleMania? One for each, I guess, right? On SmackDown, I guess the angle everybody wants to see on SmackDown would be The Rock and Roman, because we're going to get Brock and Roman before then, but I think we're going to play out The Rock and Roman. I think that's what everybody wants. I think it'll depending on the schedule. That's what I would book for next year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's just too busy, but I think that's the angle on SmackDown. Everybody wants to see it, is The Rock versus Roman, but how would I book it? I would book it at after the Royal Rumble, and The Rock comes out and does this thing. Actually, I could see even The Rock maybe even appearing in the Rumble and winning the Rumble would even be a better angle, and that he does challenge his cousin at WrestleMania, and they go through the whole hype. The whole problem with this is that what happens if does The Rock win it and then he loses immediately? I can see The Rock actually winning the match. I can actually see him just putting the head of the table in his place, winning the match, and then surrendering the title. And they have to have a tournament with the SmackDown roster to determine a new champion. And maybe it culminates at SummerSlam or something. And then I also could see out of the angle, Paul Heyman turns on Roman Reigns and then sides with Brock Lesnar and actually ends up helping Brock actually beat Roman. Now remember, Brock Lesnar is scheduled for 8 to 12 matches over the next 18 months or so. So this could be an interesting angle developing at some point that Heyman may turn and cost Roman the title. But I think we'll get The Rock and Roman first, and maybe The Rock will just surrender the title after winning, and then that could build up the feud on maybe Paul turning on Roman and siding with Brock because they're both natural heels. So that's what I think could happen as far as SmackDown. On Raw, I'm going to go with a ladies here. I'm going to say I'm going to book an angle with Rhea Ripley. I know, but I'm going to book Rhea because she's the future of the company, and Rhea versus Alexa Bliss for the women's title. That would be the angle I would book. Well, first you got to get the title off of Charlotte. So I would book Alexa Bliss versus Rhea Ripley, and I would book that angle. I think that's what I would want to see. I want to see that. How it plays out, Charlotte will lose to Alexa. I think that is going to happen before the year is over, because there's been speculation where that she hasn't been on. I would book it where Alexa Bliss takes the title off of Charlotte, and Rhea Ripley wins the Women's Royal Rumble and then challenges Alexa Bliss for the Raw title, and they go at it one-on-one at WrestleMania. That's what I would book. And that's how I'd see it playing out, Rich. That's what I want to see. I want to see Alexa Bliss and Rhea headline WrestleMania for the women's division. The future against the former multiple champion, SmackDown, Raw, Tag Team champion. I would play it out, and I would let Alexa take the title by Survivor Series in the next couple months. I would take it. And let Rhea win the Rumble. I put Charlotte out of the picture, and you move forward with these two. That's how I would book it. Next question, Rich. If you were to start a company with 3 current active performers, who would you pick? Anywhere in the world, 3 current performers. Well, I would start with the best in the world. CM Punk. He's back. He's all elite. He is back. I would start with the self-professed best in the world, hands down. That's who I would start my company with, if I was to start a company. I would also start a company, if I was going to start a promotion, I would definitely pick the head of the table. If you're going to have the best in the world, you have to have the best head of the table there. I would pick Roman Reigns. Yes, because you need an ultimate bad guy, and he's doing it very, very well. I would also pick Jon Moxley because of his hardcore status, and you need a hardcore legend that could mix it up in all these different type of gimmick crazy matches. So if I was to start a wrestling promotion among the men, I would pick CM Punk, Roman Reigns, and Jon Moxley. And yeah, we would get an argument for so many others, but I'm just saying if I was to start a promotion, those are the 3 men I would want. As far as women is concerned, well, I would definitely pick the man, Becky Lynch, no doubt. I would pick the man, unequivocally the man. I would definitely pick the future and Rhea Ripley, no doubt about it. I think Rhea Ripley is the future of all the professional women. And I also would pick Thunder Rosa. I think she's very underrated. She gave Britt Baker the match of the year on live TV. I don't think everybody knows about her, but if I was to start a promotion, I would definitely want Thunder Rosa. Thunder Rosa, Becky Lynch, Rhea Ripley would be my 3 women that I would start a wrestling company with. And again, this could be anything, but I'm just saying those are my picks that I would pick. Top 3 managers of all time. Rich, again, thank you. Had a couple. Top 3 man all time. Oh goodness gracious. Of all time, I would pick Bobby Heenan at the top because he's the brain and the greatest manager of all time. I think. It's been proven. Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart managed multiple champions throughout his career. My favorite, Andy Kaufman never got the belt, but Jimmy Hart had done so much. I think he's just an amazing. He's got to be right up there with Bobby Heenan. Wow, Heenan and Hart. I'm gonna look for another promotion. I guess I'm gonna have to stay with the WWE, WWF, and say Captain Lou Albano, because Captain Lou Albano was the manager of champions. He managed so many champions over his career as a face and a heel. I would say they would be the top three: Heenan, Hart, and Albano. I honestly thought that they had, of all the wrestling promotions, the WWE, WWF, they had the best managers. Nothing against other promotions. I just think that they had the best managers. They were utilized more. I will give an honorable mention, though, to James J. Dillon, because I don't think the Four Horsemen would have been as successful without the backbone of James J. Dillon. I mean, there was always an incarnation on the fourth, but without JJ, I don't think it would have survived. So an honorable mention would go to James J. Dillon. But the top three, Heenan, Hart, and Albano, will be my top three managers of all time. Mike from Orlando. Mike, thank you, Mike. If you were to bring back posthumously three wrestlers to wrestle in one match, who would you bring back? Wow, that's a loaded question. Thank you, Mike. Three wrestlers that passed away would you bring back for one match? Bruno Sammartino, Randy Savage, Paul Orndorff. And why not? Let's make it a fatal four-way since they've already gone. I would pick Dusty Rhodes. I'd make it a fatal four-way. So Bruno, Dusty, Savage, Paul Orndorff in a fatal four-way. I would have Savage pinning Dusty Rhodes. That would be my pick. I know the obvious one would be Bruno Sammartino. I think just for the sake of argument, I would just say that Randy Savage and would pin Dusty Rhodes. It could be anybody, any one of the four. All four are just amazing. But if I were to bring back four, those would be my four. Another question from Al came in. We know that Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage put on the greatest wrestling match, but is there another match that stands out in your mind as far as WrestleMania that you would say that this was one I would want to watch over and over again? Yeah, there is one. It comes right off the bat. WrestleMania 2 in Chicago, the Tag Team Championship, the Bulldogs against the Dream Team, Valentine and Beefcake, is obviously, to me, the greatest WrestleMania tag team match in the history of WrestleMania. History of WrestleMania of tag matches, that was the best tag team match of all time. And if you want to go back and watch it, it was a clinic, it was an exhibition. I was at the Rutgers Athletic Piscataway, New Jersey, watching it on closed circuit TV with my friend Dan Breezak. That was really the only match I really got off my feet and was on ooh and ah and cheering and screaming the whole time. It was just absolutely incredible and fantastic, and to me, the greatest tag team match of all time on WrestleMania. Not of ever, but of all the WrestleManias, that was the best tag team match. So yes, that was my favorite tag match of WrestleMania, and I think to me it was probably made my second favorite match of all the WrestleManias, hands down. Another question that came in: if you were in charge of wrestling one day, anywhere, for any promotion, what promotion would you pick, and what would you do? You guys give me up the most loaded questions. One promotion, one day. If I could just do one thing in one day. Wow. I thought about this for a couple of days. I would pick the WWE. I would pick the WWE, and I would honestly give a bigger push to the women's division and stars that are not currently being utilized properly. That's what I would do. I would want to give more pushes to the talent that is not frequently used and give them a chance to shine and give the women more of a chance to shine with longer matches. I'm actually enjoying the women more than the men, and I would want to give people a chance to see talent that hasn't been utilized. I would bring back talent that was let go and let them have a chance to shine. That's what I would pick. That's what I would do. And that's my thoughts. I'm going to wrap this up here in a moment. We're at the 15-minute mark. Another question that came in from Mike is, how do you feel about with the fact that Brian Knobs is in the hospital and hasn't been feeling well? They started a GoFundMe to raise $15,000. Does this mean that it's time that wrestling should have been unionized? Because if it was, we wouldn't have had to have a GoFundMe account created. And your thoughts on that? I'm going to answer it, and then I'm going to wrap it up, and thank you for the question. I longed back in the day when Jesse Ventura tried to unionize wrestling. Yes, I do feel that just like baseball, basketball, football, you have to have some sort of unionized wrestling. I think they are just as vital performers as actors and actresses, athletes. They're a combination of both. And the absolute, what they put on their bodies through 300 plus days a year, even with a pandemic going on, yes, I think we really, wrestling as a whole, of all promotions, all performers, it should be unionized, not just under one, but unionized collectively, which I don't think it'll ever happen. But when Jesse tried to do it, it didn't go well, it didn't sit well. And he then became an actor under the Screen Actors Guild, which is SAG, which provides a union for actors and actresses, which is when he was able to do Predator. And he has his benefits now that he's older and provides for retirement and medical and all these things, which is something I feel for with a lot of performers that they don't have. They don't have that. And eventually I'd like to do a rough cuts on unionization of wrestling and the benefits. But to answer your question, yes, I do think wrestling needs to be unionized. You're seeing a lot of performers become actors. They're doing movies and things, which puts them a part of that, the way Jesse did. Like The Rock, John Cena's of the world. They have acted in movies because they now are setting themselves up for retirement later on in life and all the benefits that go with it. And if that's as a direct result of not being unionized. And I think that's something that we should have as a unionized protocol in professional wrestling. So yes, I do think that we do need to have a union. I think for the sake of the well-being of the performers that sacrifice their bodies night in and night out, 300 plus days a year, because when the show is over, what happens? What happens to the Bray Wyatts, the Bo Dallases, and some of all these other guys that get released and these people on the indie scene, what happens when they get injured? Who pays for their medical bills? And look at Brian Knobs. Now, Brian, they have a thing up for him and raising money to help him. What happens to these guys when the show is over and they do need medical assistance? I think that, will we see it? Probably not. We're not going to see it in the WWE because, Vince shot that down. But at some point, I think it's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. You have performers that need the promoter, and the promoter needs the performer, and I think you have to come together and have some sort of unionization in wrestling. And I will talk about it more on a future edition of Rough Cuts. So yes, to answer your question, I think we do need to for what happened with people with Brian Knobs. Now, if you want to donate to Brian Knobs, go to GoFundMe.com and look up Brian Knobs, KNOBBS. He's raised about $15,000 or so towards his goal for his medical expenses and things that he has going on. My prayers are out to the Knobs family and hope he gets well in a speedy recovery. I'm at 19 minutes here. I'm going to wrap it up real quick. Yes, the show was full of surprise and all out. And yes, Daniel Bryan returned, Adam Cole returned, Ruby won the Casino Battle Royal. Congratulations to her. I will get into it in more in depth on the next edition of Rough Cuts, and it will be has All Elite really now becoming the elite of all elite with Ruby, Daniel, Adam Cole, potentially Bray Wyatt may be coming in October, not confirmed yet, CM Punk, so many others. Are they really now becoming all elite? And this could be the beginning of the end of the WWE? That'll be my next Rough Cuts. I'm going to talk about it and get into great detail. But at the 20-minute mark, I hope I answered your questions. If I didn't get to it, send me an email, salinbandit42@gmail.com. Tweet me on Twitter. I'll get to them as over the next Rough Cuts. We'll answer them individually. But thank you for tuning in. As always, may all your matches be a main event. Be safe, be sound, be good. I'll see you next time. I'm out. Till next week.